but it was just falling apart. And
Well, Brooke, this is an interesting story. I want you to help me out with this because here's where you and I converge.
Are we back on the air?
Oh yeah, we're back on the air. And the story, this is where you and I converge on things because
Converge or conflict?
No, we'll converge on this one because there's a museum in the state of Kentucky called the Creation Museum.
Okay.
Now, you imagine what's that all about?
the creation of the world, 2,000 years ago, God created the world in 7 days.
Or is
That's
this,
right, you heathen.
is this like in Eden, Kentucky or something?
I forgot. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where it is. But they created this whole museum to promote the concept of creationism. I have no problem with anybody who wants to believe in creationism. This is a free country.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that there's science and there's religion, both wonderful things, good in their own right. I find no conflict between evolution and theology. I find no conflict, but they do because they're what we call literalists or fundamental Christians, and they do have a problem with it. Well, that's fine. It's a free country. You don't have to buy this stuff, but I do have a problem with being ignorant. I have a problem because I used to teach evolution, and I used to be the subject of some rather spirited conversations in churches on Wednesday nights, and I used to get hate mail delivered here. As a matter of fact, oh yeah, I used to get hate mail delivered here. I actually had my old curriculum stolen out of my filing cabinet in the place where I used to work. I have a strong suspicion it was actually my administration.
Oh.
I think they just were tired of the hassle of doing it. I said, look, this is part of the curriculum. You know, I tell them, I expect you to back me up on this, you know. I tell the kids, you don't have to accept it. If you come from a background where, you know, your religious beliefs require that you not accept this, that's fine. I'm not saying you have to accept it. I'm just saying you have to know what it is. I said, I can teach you about communism. That doesn't mean you have to become a Marxist, you know.
It's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope. Now, one minute you're voting for Obama, the next minute you got gulags, right?
Yes.
See, we managed to get political in there after all, didn't we? So anyway, what happened was at the Kentucky Creation Museum, they had date night. Now there's a guy named Joe Sanka, who's a blogger, and he's somewhat critical of the Kentucky Creation Museum, but they were having date night. So he bought 2 tickets and brought his date, his significant other. Well, Joe Sanka is gay, and he brought his same-sex partner, and they were not allowed in. And so it created a bit of a stir in Kentucky.
So date was literal, so like if my dad brought me, that they would turn us away too?
I guess so.
I just
It
want
was,
to make sure it's clear.
maybe it was a Valentine's Day thing, because it
Okay.
was around Valentine's
Okay.
Day.
Okay.
So that was the whole point of it, to bring your romantic
What
partner.
if you brought a piece of fruit?
Or your real doll.
That is your a piece of fruit?
Date.
It's date night. I brought my date. I imagine they probably would have laughed and have let you in. They didn't find Joe Sanka amusing at all, and they wouldn't let him in. Now, to be fair to them, they did make it clear in their advertisement, because in this day and age, I suppose you have to, that it was for heterosexuals only. Now, this is a private museum. It's not funded with public funds or anything else like that. So they're free to do that if they want. But I just thought it was pretty funny. And although I would think, probably on most counts, I would think Joe Sanka as being a bit of a knucklehead, I found that amusing. And kind of like, good for him. He just, every now and then it's good to stir people up, get their blood boiling, you know?
Absolutely.
It's good for them.
Controversy is
Yeah, look at this free publicity it got them, you know? But I just thought that was interesting. And if I were in that area of Kentucky, I would pay money. I would go into the museum. Now,
Just to kind of know, for me, it's the know my enemy kind of thing.
yeah, yeah, that's right. No, you know what I mean. No, I don't consider you can win any, but you know, but the problem they have is they just can't seem to separate the two concepts. To me, the story of Genesis is a why story. It's not a how story. Science tells you how something happened, but I do agree with this. And one of the reasons why you get these backlashes, these pushbacks from religion, is that science is a very poor substitute for religion when it comes to issues of why, to giving meaning to life. Science doesn't really concern itself with that. Science concerns itself with how things happen, cause and effect, you know, chemical reactions, mathematics, that sort of thing. It's up to you to give something meaning. But I've never found anything in science to contradict with fundamental religious concepts. Never found that, never had a problem with that. How about you, Brooke?
Oh no, I was just thinking, recently. Was it Bill O'Reilly and his, God, what is it, the tides or something? It's God who brings the tides. I mean, he has I can't remember.
I got no problem with that.
But he was just.
You're talking about the.
He was
it's
saying
that old.
it wasn't.
Who was it?
It's
Came
not
up.
the moon. It's like.
Well, but it is the moon, but it's also God. What is that? What was that concept? It came from the 17th century clockwork. Was it Sir Isaac Newton that came up with the concept of the clockwork God? Yeah, I know you can explain this because it's a scientific principle, but it was all put into motion by a supreme being.
Right, who put the moon in
Sir Isaac Newton was actually quite religious, and he said, what you're seeing, the laws of physics is just knowing the mind of God. And although the moon brings the tide in now, it's all part of all of creation, and therefore the ultimate author for that is God. I got no problem with that, and if that's the way somebody wants to look at it, people need meaning in their life. People aren't going to go to their graves going, "Oh God, wouldn't it wonderful to know that the moon brought the tides in and out?" That doesn't bring a lot of comfort. We're just talking about something. Oh, I was just talking with students about the American Civil War and why it was so important, the Emancipation Proclamation. Because when the war started, it was a noble idea. We're going to save the Union. These people are rebellious. We're going to put the rebellion down and save the country. That's a noble thought. But it's very difficult to go and tell a mother that her son got his head blown off for a political theory. Yeah, it's just like, what? What? Yeah, to keep South Carolina in the Union, your son marched in there. We got his head shot off. But don't worry, we'll get a few more heads shot off, and then South Carolina can stay in the Union. That brings no comfort. Right. I think it was absolutely essential, emancipation, because it's one thing to die for political theory. It's another thing to die for the freedom of all human beings. That has not only moral implications, it has religious implications. And all of a sudden, a guy is going to stand a little taller. He's going to stand his ground a little bit firmer. If you can enslave one man, why can't you enslave another? And that's the kind of point I try to bring to my students. People need meaning in life, and that's just, I think that's a given. Not amusing,
No.
not particularly funny. We'll find something. Oh, I got a wonderful joke for you. This preacher is standing up there and he's giving a sermon, and he's talking about how everyone has enemies, but you have an enemy. If he slaps you in the face, you turn, you offer the other cheek. If he steals your coat, give him your tunic. That sort of thing. That he uses the words of Christ. He said, who in here does not have an enemy? And an old man in the back of the church raised his hand. Mr. Harris? Yep. You have no enemies. No. Mr. Harris, how old are you? I'm 98. Mr. Harris, you mean to tell this entire congregation that you have lived for 98 years and you have no enemies? Not a one. Well, that's remarkable, Mr. Harris. Can you explain to us how it is you can live 98 years and you don't have an enemy? I outlived the sons of bitches. That's a great joke. I got that from Beverly Bell, a fan of the show, and she emails me jokes and things like that. So does Caramore, and that's where I get some of my jokes. I don't write them all. The ones you laugh at, I didn't write.
In a slightly unrelated topic, you were talking about science back there and creationism and all. I had to laugh the other day. I was looking at the newspaper and I laughed out loud because a scientist told us how many stars were in the universe. It's 6 sextillion stars.
And this guy got how much of a grant to do this?
Exactly.
See?
I said, I need to be a scientist.
That's right. This is why we're awash in debt. Don't get me wrong, it's a very nice thing to know. But how much did that cost?
And is sextillion really a number?
I know, it's
And
not.
why 6? Why not 5.8?
That's right.
Why not 7.3?
6 sextillion.
And is there an octatillion?
In the Milky Way.
That's why there's-
Oh, I don't know.
That's why there's so many stars. It's sextillion.
Right.
What do you think's going to happen?
But I mean, can you imagine? Somebody got money to make up that number?
Oh yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, really. And how many years did they string that out?
Too long. Anyway, we're going to be right back with our final segment. We can talk a little politics if you want, and we'll say our goodnights. And so we'll be back with our final section. I hope you come back, Margot. We'll be right back with Colbertradio.com.